What's up, everybody? Today, we have another video. We're going international, but trust me, this isn't about finding the biggest pizza in Italy or anything like that. We're talking about the top 10 most dangerous countries in the entire world. Now I know what you're thinking, why so serious all of a sudden? Well, sometimes it's important to talk about the tough stuff, and for a lot of people in these countries, dangerous is an understatement. So buckle up, hit that like button for the algorithm, and let's dive into this crazy list. Alright guys, first up we've got Syria. Sadly, it's been ravaged by a brutal civil war for over a decade. We're talking constant fighting, bombings, millions displaced from their homes. It's just heartbreaking. Imagine living in a place where you never know if your house will be standing tomorrow, where just stepping outside could be the most dangerous thing you do. The level of destruction is just unimaginable, and it's not just the war. Because of the chaos, crime rates have skyrocketed. Kidnappings, robberies, it's just become a breeding ground for danger. The sad reality is, Syria is a place where even basic safety is a luxury most can't afford. Before the war, Syria was known for its beautiful historical sites, its rich culture. It's a stark reminder that things can change in an instant, and how conflict can just tear a country apart. Hopefully one day, peace will return, and it can rebuild, but until then, it remains at the top of this list for all the wrong reasons. So yeah, Syria is definitely a place you want to avoid right now. Next up we've got Afghanistan, a country that's seen its fair share of turmoil over the years. Decades of conflict, and just when it seemed like things might be looking up, everything changed last year. With the Taliban back in control, the future of Afghanistan is uncertain, to say the least. The human rights situation is a major concern, especially for women and girls who are seeing their freedoms severely restricted. And then there's the constant threat of terrorism. Groups like ISIS are still active in the region, and attacks unfortunately aren't uncommon. Imagine living with that kind of fear every single day, never knowing when or where the next attack might happen. It's a reality for millions of Afghans. The sad part is, Afghanistan is a country with so much potential. It's got stunning natural beauty, a rich history, and resilient people who've been through so much. But right now it's a place where danger lurks around every corner. The people of Afghanistan deserve peace and stability, and hopefully one day they'll get it. But for now, it remains a place where safety is a major concern. Alright guys, moving on to Yemen, a country that's been caught in a brutal civil war for years. Now you might not hear about Yemen as much as some of the other places on this list, but trust me, the situation there is absolutely dire. We're talking about what the UN has called the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Millions of people are on the brink of famine, kids are dying from preventable diseases. It's just heartbreaking. Imagine a place where simply getting enough food or clean water is a daily struggle, where hospitals are overflowing with the sick and injured. The conflict has created a breeding ground for violence and lawlessness. There are airstrikes, bombings, armed groups roaming the streets. It's incredibly dangerous for civilians. Yemen is a country with so much potential, but right now it's trapped in a cycle of violence and despair. The people there desperately need help, and it's up to the international community to step up and do something. Chapter 4: Honduras, Trapped in Violence. Up next we've got Honduras, a Central American nation grappling with soaring crime rates and widespread poverty. Now, Honduras has unfortunately become synonymous with violence. It's got one of the highest murder rates in the world, and gangs pretty much run the show in many areas. Imagine living in a place where you're constantly looking over your shoulder, where even walking down the street can be a risk. It's a terrifying reality for many Hondurans. Corruption is rampant, the justice system is weak, and poverty is widespread. It's a toxic mix that's fueled this cycle of lawlessness and despair. Honduras is a country with so much to offer. It's got beautiful beaches, lush rainforests, and a rich culture, but the violence and instability overshadow all of that. Many Hondurans, especially young people, feel like they have no choice but to flee their homes, risking their lives to escape the violence and poverty. Chapter 5: South Sudan, a nation in crisis. Alright guys, next up is South Sudan, the world's youngest country, but sadly one plagued by conflict and poverty. South Sudan gained its independence back in 2011, and everyone was hopeful for a brighter future. But just a few years later the country plunged into a brutal civil war. And it's been a disaster ever since. We're talking widespread violence, ethnic cleansing, millions displaced from their homes. Imagine a country where hospitals and schools are constantly under attack, where people are too afraid to even farm their land because of the fighting. South Sudan is a place where even the most basic necessities like food, water, and healthcare are scarce. Millions of people are relying on aid just to survive. South Sudan has incredible potential. It's got fertile land, abundant natural resources, and a resilient population. Hopefully, one day, South Sudan can overcome these challenges and achieve lasting peace, but right now, it remains a place of immense suffering and danger. Chapter 6, Haiti, struggling to recover. Up next, we've got Haiti, a Caribbean nation that's been hit hard by natural disasters and political instability. Haiti's no stranger to hardship. It's been ravaged by earthquakes, hurricanes, and political turmoil for decades. And just when it seems like things can't get any worse, another disaster strikes. In 2021, it was hit by a devastating earthquake that killed thousands and left countless people homeless. Imagine living in a place where you're constantly rebuilding your life, where natural disasters are a constant threat. It's a reality for millions of Haitians. Haiti is plagued by poverty, corruption, and gang violence. In many areas, gangs control everything from the streets to the government. It's a dangerous mix that's left many Haitians feeling hopeless and forgotten. The Haitian people are incredibly resilient, but they need help. Alright guys, moving on to El Salvador, a small Central American country with a big gang problem. El Salvador has been in the news a lot lately because of its controversial crackdown on gangs. But the truth is, El Salvador has been grappling with gang violence for decades. These gangs, they control entire neighborhoods, they extort businesses, they recruit young people, and they're incredibly violent. Imagine living in a place where you're constantly worried about being caught in the crossfire, where your children are at risk of being forced into gangs. The government's trying to crack down on the gangs, but it's a tough battle. These gangs are deeply entrenched, they have a lot of power, and they're not afraid to use violence. El Salvador is a beautiful country with so much to offer. It's got stunning beaches, volcanoes, and a rich culture, but the violence and insecurity overshadow all of that. Hopefully, one day, El Salvador can break free from the grip of gang violence and achieve lasting peace. Alright guys, next up is Venezuela, a country that was once one of the wealthiest in South America, but is now in the midst of a devastating economic collapse. Venezuela's story is a tragic one. It's got the world's largest proven oil reserves, but years of corruption, mismanagement, and economic sanctions have brought the country to its knees. Imagine a place where hyperinflation is so bad that your life savings can become worthless overnight, where basic necessities like food and medicine are scarce and unaffordable. Millions of people have fled the country in recent years, creating a refugee crisis in neighboring countries. It's the largest exodus in Latin American history. Venezuela is also plagued by political instability, crime, and violence. It's a dangerous combination that's left many Venezuelans feeling hopeless and desperate. Hopefully, one day Venezuela can turn things around and reclaim its former prosperity. But for now, it remains a place of immense suffering and danger. Alright guys, moving on to Somalia, a country in East Africa that's been ravaged by civil war and terrorism for decades. Somalia is often described as a failed state. It's got a weak central government, and large parts of the country are controlled by armed groups, including the notorious Al-Shabaab. These groups, they carry out bombings, assassinations, and kidnappings. They impose their own strict interpretation of Islamic law, and they're constantly fighting for control of territory. Imagine living in a place where you never know if you're going to get caught in a crossfire, where you're constantly worried about being targeted by terrorists. Somalia is also plagued by drought, famine, and disease. Millions of people are in desperate need of humanitarian assistance. But it's important to remember that there are people in Somalia who are working tirelessly to make things better. There are doctors and nurses risking their lives to provide health care. There are teachers trying to educate the next generation, and there are activists fighting for peace and justice. Alright guys, last but not least, we've got Mexico. Mexico's a country that's close to the hearts of many Americans. It's a popular tourist destination known for its beautiful beaches, delicious food, and rich culture. But unfortunately, Mexico is also facing a serious security crisis. Drug cartels have a powerful presence in many parts of the country, and they're engaged in a brutal war for control of drug trafficking routes. These cartels, they're incredibly violent. They don't hesitate to use violence to intimidate, silence opposition, and protect their interests. And unfortunately, innocent people often get caught in the crossfire. The U.S. State Department has issued travel warnings for several Mexican states due to high levels of crime and violence. So, if you're planning a trip to Mexico, do your research, be aware of your surroundings, and avoid areas that are known to be dangerous. And there you have it, guys, the top 10 most dangerous countries in the world. Remember, these are just rankings based on data, and every country has its own unique challenges and complexities. Thanks for watching. If you found this video informative, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Stay safe and see you in the next video.